If you are sick and tired of sending email after email that just doesn't get a response or gets the classic "we don't have a budget" type response, then this video is for you. We're talking about how to get better clients, better response rates, charge more per client, and ultimately just build a content business that allows you to be both financially free as well as time free. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So before we talk about the main topic, which is obviously emails, I think it's first important that we even cover the funnel essentially of what most of your prospects are going to go through. Now, most content creators don't know that this even exists, but it does, and I'm going to explain to you how this works. So this is a funnel, meaning that the wider the top of it is, the more people that come in the top, the more chance you have of closing a deal at the bottom. But the problem is a lot of creators try to get as many people as they possibly can. Let me get a pen here. As many people as they possibly can to be aware of them, right? They'll send out tons of emails, tons of outreach, whatever, right? The volume is big, so they have a big, wide base at the top. But the problem is because they don't go through this entire funnel and they try to close the deal right here, it ends up falling flat and you don't close many deals. So instead of the funnel looking like this, it ends up looking a little more like this, where the top of it is super wide, right? But you don't get many people going to the bottom and you end up closing barely any deals. So what you actually need to do is take them through this entire process. So let me just show you what people typically do, and I can kind of point out some of the pitfalls and then show you the right way of doing it. So the typical process that people do, right, is they will find a script somewhere. So let's just say that this is a script that they find on a blog, they find on a course, whatever it might be, right? And they copy and paste this script and just change out the brand name or the email or whatever, and they just blast it out, right? So let's just say that these are emails and they're blasting out, let's just say like 1,000 a month or something like that. Sometimes it's even more. And they're blasting this same script email to a list of clients, right, that are very different. Okay, they have different needs, they have different pain points, they have different desires and end goals, but they're sending the same script and they're wondering why they're either getting no response, right, or the whole like "we don't have a budget" type response. And ultimately, maybe if you send enough of these emails, it's a numbers game, right? So if you send 1,000 emails, you might land 1 or 2 deals, but your close rate is horrible because you're not actually talking to the client and you're not taking them through a process like what we have down here. So what people typically will say in these emails, and the reason it doesn't work, is they'll typically be like, you know, if it's a hotel, they'll say, "I'm traveling to, you know, X location." Or they might just come out the gate swinging and they say, you know, "here's my rates," or, here's, or they might even say something like, you know, "I want to create content for you, let's collab." And let me just show you why these are all bad. And I know because I've seen these on blogs everywhere. People have stuff like this. Like there's ebooks people are selling that say something like, "You're traveling to this location, you saw their resort, you thought it was amazing, you want to create content for them." The problem is you are reaching out cold and the brand likely doesn't have any clue who you are. And guess what? Tons of people are traveling to that location as well. And because you're not actually providing any value, best case scenario in this scenario, you might get a free room out of it just because they need to fill a room and it really is no cost to them and they get some free content out of it. The second option is if you say like, "here's my rates," or even if you send a proposal. First of all, you don't even know what the client needs. You don't know what they want. So how could you possibly say this is what you're going to give them and this is how much it costs, right? I mean, think about it. When's the last time you got a promotional marketing email that had "this is how much you're going to pay for this thing," and you responded and you were stoked to respond to it? Like probably never, right? You probably have never done that. You probably just immediately deleted it or ignored it and just moved on with your life. Yet so many people are doing this. And then if you say something like, you know, "let's collaborate" or "let's find a way to collab," that's just shooting yourself in the foot and you're immediately just going to get a free deal out of that. So just don't do any of these things. Like any of the things that pretty much everyone is telling you to do, just don't do it. I'm going to show you a much better way. Okay. The problem is most people are focusing on the script here, but you shouldn't be focusing on the script. You should actually be focusing on something very different. So if I zoom out here, okay, and go to the precision prospecting funnel, this is actually what I help my clients build out. It's called, I call it precision prospecting, but you'll notice it's kind of like an inverted version of this funnel, right? Where you have your, the more people that come in the top, or I guess in this case is the bottom, the more people that come into the funnel, the more you're actually going to close down here, right? So it's basically just an inverted version of this. Now, the problem is what we've been talking about is most people just focus on sending as many messages as they possibly can. But as you'll notice, this is actually not the top of the funnel. This is actually not what you need to be focusing on for the most part. What you actually need to be focusing on is the foundation down here. So what is that? Well, number one, it's a valuable offer. See, because most creators, when they pitch, they're like, I can create 15 photos for you and 12 videos for you, and it's going to cost you this much, right? But the problem is most brands are not just looking to buy a gallery of pictures. They're not just looking to get some videos to throw up on social media. That's not the end game. And if they were, they weren't going to be willing to pay that much for it. So we have to make something actually valuable. And I'm not saying that your content's not valuable, so don't misunderstand. But what I am saying is that you have to position it as something that is valuable. Just saying, hey, I can have a gallery of pictures is not that valuable. But when you say that this picture will result in a much better ROI on your ad spend, now all of a sudden, same product, much different value proposition, right? So we have to have a different valuable proposition. The second is expert positioning. So there's thousands of creators that are highly qualified and just as qualified as you to take on some of these jobs. So why are you the one to do it for this brand? Right? You have to position yourself as the only person, the only creator that is qualified to do it. And how do you position yourself as an expert? You speak their language. You speak exactly what their problem is, exactly how you're going to solve it. And you basically just resonate with them to the point where they're like, well, we know there's a lot of other people that are qualified, but you actually understand us and you actually took the time to build a relationship with us, right? If we zoom back out to here, you'll see that conversation engaged is the next step of the funnel, right? We have to be able to engage somebody in a conversation. And if we're not engaging someone in a conversation through resonating with them, then there's no shot that we're going to get them down here to closing a deal. Okay. And if we are, it's definitely not for that much. So that's why that's super important. So once we get through our expert positioning, the next thing is high-end branding. And I'm not necessarily talking about just working with luxury resorts or luxury brands or anything like that. I'm just talking there's a difference between a brand that's willing to pay $200 for a video versus one that's willing to pay 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand for a video. So what's the difference? Well, they have a different expectation for the vendors they work with, right? So if you want to position yourself to be able to take on those types of budgets, you have to position yourself as the type of vendor that they would be willing to pay those types of budgets. So think about it. Who are they going to be paying 10 grand for a video for? Likely it's not the guy that just reaches out and says, hey, I'll make a video for you. Likely it's somebody who actually creates a strategy for them, who actually takes the time to build a relationship, to take them through a sales process, to take them through sales calls, to build out custom things for them. That's how you build a high-end brand that attracts the types of brands that actually have the budget that you want to work with. And then lastly, bringing it all together is just your messaging. And your messaging connects to all of these, right? Messaging is just talking to a very specific client, solving a very specific problem with a very specific method, right? So a very specific client, okay? High-end branding. We're trying to attract those high-end brands. Solving a very specific problem, right? Your expert positioning. You're an expert at solving this specific problem. And you're doing it in a very specific way, which is your valuable offer. So when you combine all these three together, you get your clear message, which you then can pump into your email and your messages. But if you don't understand this first, and you're just doing what most people do, which is just blasting out a ton of emails, then your response rate is going to be absolutely horrible. So the question is, well, how do we do a better job than this? And what do we do to do a better job? So let's just put a line in the sand here. And so what you need to do instead is what I call precision prospecting. Okay. So that's when you have, again, a very specific prospect with a very specific problem and you're solving it in a very specific way. Okay. So yes, we might send the same amount of emails or even less in some cases. Okay. But instead of all of the emails going to these clients and they just don't speak to them whatsoever, we're writing emails very specific to the certain client, right? So they have a light bulb type moment. They have this epiphany that, oh, wait, these people actually care about us. They actually understand what we need. They actually know how to help us, right? So we start engaging the conversation. Okay. Our only goal in this email is not to sell them. Again, most people try to sell right off the bat. They try to come out the gate swinging. Here's the proposal. Here's how much it costs. This is the kind of deliverables I can give you, whatever it might be. But the problem is you skip this entire stage here, right? So instead of doing that, we're just going to engage the client. We're going to engage the conversation, create some sort of interest so that they actually want to respond to us and actually want to have a conversation. And again, how do we do that? We speak their language, we speak their problem, their pain points, how we can actually solve it so that they think that we are somebody who can actually help them, right? Once we get them interested, the next stage, if you look at the funnel here, is getting them to book a call. Okay, so let's just say that this box is booking a call. And most creators don't do the sales call because they're either nervous, they're not confident in what they have to offer, they don't like doing sales, they don't know how to do sales or whatever it might be, right? What I teach my clients is actually sales as service, right? We're actually just offering a service that'll help a client. And when you know the framework, I call it the storytelling sales framework because I think it's really easy for creators to grasp and understand. But when you know the framework, then it's extremely easy and you can just take them through it and they'll actually be stoked to work with you because you're actually solving a problem versus like forcing content down their throat. That's not what we want, right? So once you take them through a sales call, sometimes you'll have to send a proposal, as you'll see down here, right? But sometimes you'll just close the deal and, it'll just turn into money in your pocket. And people are willing to pay a whole lot more for somebody who solves a specific problem for them. I mean, think about doctors, right? Are you going to pay more for a general practitioner or a heart surgeon? You're going to pay more for the heart surgeon because he's far more qualified and he solves a very specific problem. Okay, so let me just put this into perspective here. So let's just say everything is even. Okay, so let's just say that we reach out to 100 prospects. Okay, our top of funnel is the same size, okay? 100 prospects over here as well. Our top of funnel, the amount of people coming in, the amount of people that are aware of us is exactly the same. Now, when we do the spray and pray kind of thing, the copy and paste, send it out and just hope something good happens, the amount of conversations that you actually engage out of these 100, you might be lucky if it's 10, but let's just be optimistic and say it's 10. Usually it'll probably be more in like this maybe 5 to 7 range, but let's just say it's 10. Whereas here, because you're talking very specifically to a client and you're being conversational and have like a conversational call to action, you might get, it's not unreasonable to have 40 to 50 of those 100 people respond. Okay. Now, in terms of booking calls, most creators, like I talked about, don't really even book calls because they don't know how or they're scared or whatever. Right. So, but let's just assume that somebody does book a call. Because this is so generic, you might only book 1 to 2 calls, but let's again be optimistic and say it's 2. Whereas over here, of these 40, let's just say that you can only get 20% of those people on a call. You're still looking at 8. So if you look at it, actually our conversion rate here is the exact same. Okay, so conversions into book calls, it's 20%. Here as well, 20%. Now, let's just skip this phase because sometimes people don't need it. You definitely need it if you're doing this, but over here you might not need it as much. But because you don't know how to do sales, because you don't know how to actually engage a client, a lot of times you won't ever close any of these deals when you're just spraying and praying and when you don't actually speak their language. But let's just say that you can close one of these every once in a while. The thing is, it's not going to be that big of a budget. It's probably going to be, for something like this, you'd be lucky to get over $1,000 because it's just so generic. It's just so not tailored. And, that deal is not going to be that lucrative for you. Whereas here, because let's just say you have a 30% close rate, you're looking at closing potentially 3 people here, but because it's a higher value offer, it's much more tailored. Let's just say, for example, you can charge $3,000 a piece or $3,500. Let's just say $3,500, which is again, not unreasonable to do. Okay. And when you charge $3,500 a piece, then look at this, you're making over $10,000. It's actually like 10.5, right? Off of these 100 reach outs. Whereas over here, you might be making 1,000. That's the difference. It's literally a 10x return off of the same input, 100, but you're making a 10x return because it's so specific to this brand. And that's, again, why this stuff is so important. Understanding this foundational aspect of why you're an expert, why you're valuable, why the high-end brand should actually work with you, and the high-end budgets are what you command to be able to work with you as well, right? So if that sounds like you, if you're stuck in this stage where you're sending emails and you're just getting no responses or very low budgets, chances are you're probably doing something like this, right? Where you're not speaking directly to the client. So if you want to learn how to do it where you can get much better responses, get financial freedom and time freedom, and transform from a freelancer who's just spinning your wheels doing all the work into a business owner who can essentially automate this entire process and only take on the jobs that you actually want, and you are ready to scale and actually take your business serious, then check out the link in the description below and book in a call with a member of my team where we'll walk you through how we use Paid to Create to build out this and also automate almost this entire process so that you can go from being a freelancer who's wearing all the hats, doing all the things, feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, underpaid, all that kind of stuff, to somebody who actually owns the business and just runs the system and takes on the projects that you want to, so you can have financial and time freedom. So if that sounds like you, check out the link in the description below, book in a call, and we'd love to chat with you. If not, totally cool. I post tons of free value on this YouTube channel, stuff that you won't find anywhere else. So make sure you subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on my channel, because I got tons of stuff about creating offers, pricing, how to reach out, like all that kind of stuff that literally no other YouTube channel is talking about. So make sure to check out the rest of those videos if that's at all interesting to you, and I will see you in the next one.